to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Daliah Show, 1-877-Dr. 1-877-DOC-DALI. So I don't want to be a radio psychologist. There's so many questions I have to answer and so much I do with my family medicine background as well as, business owning background and PR background and everything. But I understand that I get a lot of questions that have to do with people's stress and mental health, and especially when it comes to election years. And so if I could offer some guidance and if I could help you guys get through certain stressful situations, I'm going to do it because that's my job, whether it's as a family doctor, as a business owner, as a mom, as an American, and as a radio host. So I keep seeing, and I think a lot of you guys are feeling it, this concept of there is so much riding on this election. And I am seeing people of both sides saying we can't lose this one. And there is this brewing pressure and stress to not let the other side have control of the White House. And in America, it's not supposed to be that way. Whether Democrats in office, whether Republicans in office, we should still be fine. We should still be able to afford food, feel safe in our communities, feel we have national security, feel we could get a job, feel we could still live the American dream. But that's not what I'm sensing. Every election you hear somebody goes, well, if so-and-so wins, I'm going to leave. You see all these Hollywood stars say, oh, if somebody wins, I'm going to leave. And then they don't leave. Well, why don't they leave? Well, because America is like the best country ever. But people are really fearing, especially this next election, because they want, more Supreme Court justices. Or they want to control Congress. Or they want, and this control is what's changing us from being Democratic and being American to something that we might not want to be. And we should never be in this situation where if the other side wins, we're screwed. And I see that. I can't say the word that I'm seeing people use, but they're like, if so-and-so wins, we're blanked. Why? Why do you feel that way? Because if technically the president is supposed to represent all of us, whether it's Biden, Trump, Obama, Bush, then why would you feel screwed? What is going on in politics, in administrations? Are you losing your rights? Well, what rights are you losing? And then that needs to be addressed. Now, I get it's not all cut and dry. The right of the fetus and the unborn child, the right of the mother. Does the government get involved? Does the government not get involved? I want the government out of it. I think most people could agree the government should stay out of it. I think it should be between a person and their doctor. But I understand. Issue is not very easy. And we have a lot of abortions happening. And the country feels like they need to do something about it, especially since tax dollars are going to it. It's a mess. And these women who unfortunately are facing a decision that may haunt them for years on end to keep a child or to not keep it. It's not an easy situation. But does your whole life depend on that? Is somebody making it to office going to ruin your life? None of us should have an elected representative that, quote unquote, ruins our life. Now, I think there's a lot of hyperbole. I think there's a lot of exaggeration. I know a lot of people didn't like Trump. A lot of people didn't like Biden. Do you still have a job? Are you still able to feed your family? Are you still living? So I know we're making it sound like, whoever is in power, we're all, but when I see individuals increase that fear, like there was that doctor that was kind of comparing Trump to Hitler. Come on. Okay, no wonder no wonder we're going to be facing a civil war. You're making it seem like that the world ends if your side doesn't win. It should never be that way. We're a representative democracy. We elect people to represent us. And whoever wins promises to uphold the Constitution and to represent all of us, whether Republican, Democrat. Instead, people feel that if they are of a certain political faction or of a political thinking or party, they're going to lose their job. They're going to get ousted. They're going to get canceled. And we've seen that. Okay, this is America. You don't cancel somebody for being Republican or for being Democrat. We're not supposed to do that. You don't cancel somebody based on their race, their religion. We don't do that. And so when I hear we have to win, Karine Jean-Pierre was on The View saying there's so much at stake. There's so much at stake. And mind you, I respect her. She does a good job considering all the restrictions she's under and the lack of transparency she's allowed to give. And she's a tough lady, but does she really have to make it sound like that's what I think media and these politicians and these public officials want. They want people to get out and vote, so they scare you, thinking that the world is going to end if you don't vote their way. And maybe that's the problem. Maybe this is why we have assassination attempts and we have people losing their job and people getting angry at each other. It shouldn't be like that. All right? We have a checks and balances system. But they're making it look like to be whoever wins, this country's going to completely fall apart. Well, it'll fall apart if people hate each other and are divided. Yes, it will. And if they're not represented. 1-877-Daliah.
Let's see, if something costs less, but people are happier with it, that sounds like something to look into, and that's MediShare. Maybe you've heard switching to MediShare to pay for healthcare can save the typical family $500 a month, and that's huge, but it's also true that people are way more satisfied after making the switch, too. The customer satisfaction rate for MediShare is double that of the typical health insurance plan. Double. MediShare works. It's been around for more than a quarter century, and members have shared more than $3 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth and a huge nationwide PPO network. So, yeah, you can save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care. So if you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan you're happy with, you can call right now and get a price within 2 minutes. A very, very smart use of 2 minutes. Here's the number you need. 855-SHARE-40. That's 855-SHARE-40. 855-SHARE-40.
Hey guys, it's Dr. Daliah. Fantasy football season is coming, but sadly, too many of you are taking the bench while the country takes part in one of the most exciting and lucrative industries out there. Don't know how to play? Well, huddle up and listen. Paul Kalikas and I have written a fantasy football pocket guide for beginners. This book walks you through the basics and shows you how simple and lucrative joining or creating a fantasy football team can be. Read our Fantasy Football Pocket Guide for Beginners found on Amazon or follow the links on X and Facebook. That's Fantasy Football Pocket Guides for Beginners. Don't be left out.
In a study, it was found that 33% of 44 herbal supplements had no trace of the advertised herb. Don't let that happen to you. Hi, this is Dr. Mitch. If you want to ensure quality, please go to TotalWellness.com. Supplements made for physicians only now available to you too. TotalWellness.com, helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. Dali, 1-877-DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Dr. Daliah, Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show, and on YouTube. Click like and subscribe. So many of you have asked me what to do because your child won't eat, or you have a grandchild that doesn't eat, or they're a picky eater. And it's a fascinating concept that in this day and age, when we live in a country where food is still pretty plentiful, that you have a child that is choosing not to eat. Parents feel very stressed, they feel guilty, and they don't know what to do. And so they have now coined a term for it so that we have a actual diagnosis for it, a disorder. We have a name for it. It's called avoidant restrictive food intake disorder. And it's where you have a child. It's more common in boys. And we see this in a lot of individuals, especially those with autism or Asperger's, but kids that might not have other diagnoses where they cannot tolerate certain foods based on their texture, based on how they look, based on their taste. I was a picky eater. I didn't really like a lot of food. And if I didn't want to put it in my mouth, I didn't want to put it in my mouth. And I remember my mom had a tough time with me, but you give me some cantaloupe. Ooh, I love that. I also loved cheddar cheese. I love cheddar cheese so much that when cheddar cheese had come in that Cracker Barrel square cube brick, such that when I saw Preparation H at a grocery store when I was little, I was yelling at my mom, I wanted Preparation H because it looked like the cheese. I didn't want Preparation H because I had hemorrhoids. It's because it looked like that cheddar cheese. But the only reason why I wanted cheese is because at some point somebody introduced it to me and I was like, whoa. And so getting a child to overcome that, I don't want to eat this, I don't like this, but wow, I like this, is very, very tricky. And if we don't address avoidant restrictive food intake disorder, these kids could have nutritional deficiencies. They could have failure to thrive. And so, not to mention other psychological manifestations in terms of not being able to overcome. And if you can't overcome issues with your eating, how are you going to overcome other things you need to do for yourself? I mean, as an adult, the average person does not like going to the dentist, does not like getting a pap smear, does not like getting their prostate checked. And I'm seeing adults, I think I should ask some of these adults, were you also a picky eater? Because they refuse to get something done that they don't want to do. And I understand there's instinct at play, but we have health screenings that need to be done. And sometimes you need to just, swallow it and, do what you need to do. So signs of this ARFID is where they have very negative reactions to smells, taste, textures, food. They may actually become fearful of food, neophobia. And so with that, neophobia is something that we have to address and identify as physicians because, one, was the child beat when they wouldn't eat? And so now when they look at food, they think of being beaten. Did a child throw up after eating a certain food and get so sick that traumatized them so they don't want to go there? Remember, some of it might be actually a defense mechanism. That food made me sick. I didn't like the taste. I immediately threw it up. I don't want to go there, which is a defense mechanism for the child's survival. But sometimes they may, unfortunately, get so afraid that they won't introduce any other foods. They may have no interest in eating, have a very low appetite. They may also deny feeling hungry, even though they are. And then some of them might, sometimes they might act out by vomiting or choking when they're not. And so, unfortunately, many of these kids could be underweight. Some might be normal weight, but if they're eating bad food or carbs or sweets to overcompensate, that's a problem. We may see comorbidities where they have anxiety, obsessive compulsive disorder, attention deficit, autism spectrum, etc. And so it's our job to make sure that these kids get the nutrition They need make sure they learn how to eat and learn how to appropriately eat. But it's not easy when you have a kid that goes, no, I don't want it. No. And so, providers have their work cut out for them. Number one is they have to understand what is the underlying issue. Have they not diagnosed them with what they might have if they do have autism or if they do have obsessive compulsive or something else. So one, we have to make sure. Number two is we want to also make sure that they don't have any medical issues where they're getting abdominal pain. If they have an ulcer, if they have esophagitis, if they have GERD, if they have malabsorption or issues with their bowel, we want to make sure we're not missing something that could be physically going on, which is why they're like, don't put any more food in my mouth. The reason why you get nauseous when you have pancreatitis or an ulcer or a stomach bug or a blockage in your colon is because your body is saying, we got something wrong here. Don't be sending anything down the pike. Let us fix this first. And so that's another thing that needs to be addressed. Other things that we also recommend is, of course, a nutritional evaluation. See how we could maybe give them some nutrition and make sure we're getting them up on their vitamins, etc. But with the psychological aspect of it, it's a little tricky. So on one end, parents, especially old school parents, like your baby boomers, your traditionalists, if the child doesn't want to eat, they don't eat. They'll eat when they're hungry. If they have this eating disorder, they may not do that. So when grandma is telling you, don't feed them, they'll eat when they're hungry. And you're trying to tell your mother-in-law, no, they won't eat. And he's losing weight. You got to get the family involved. Because if the child hears grandparents say, leave him alone, leave him alone. We need the whole family to kind of understand what's going on. We also need to work with the child on what works for them. So let's say they like puree. They'll tolerate a puree. Then you might have to do certain foods through puree. All right, let's say they're old enough where they want to start having more responsibilities. And they want to be big kid now. Okay, they want to cook with mommy or daddy. They want to, all right, well then let's make some eggs together. You're going to make breakfast. Okay, but as we make it, we got to taste it and make sure it's right, make sure it's okay. You don't have to necessarily eat it, but you're the chef now, so I want you to taste it and make sure it's okay. And sometimes you could give them activities that involve food. Another thing I worked with one patient was their puppy didn't want to eat. The puppy was going through something. And so we think the kid was mimicking the puppy. And so we talked with the kid to kind of help the puppy, saying, look, the puppy doesn't want to eat because he's not seen. Do you want to lick it and show the puppy that it's okay? Now, you don't want to lick it, give it to the puppy, let the puppy give it back. You want to, but do you want to show the puppy? And we're not talking about puppy food. We might be talking about a little bit of egg, or we're talking about maybe a little bit of hot dog or something, even though I don't think it's a good idea to give animals that. But back then, we were like, you want to show the puppy that you think it's yummy, that you're trying it. And sometimes also you could play a game where, okay, you don't have to eat. You don't have to call it eating, okay? But I want to see if you could guess what this is. We're going to, you got to do like the little blindfold, okay? We're going to give you something sweet, and you tell me if it's strawberry, all right? Now we're going to give you something this. You tell me, is it strawberry? Is it blueberry? Is this broccoli? Tell me what this is. And you could sometimes, just because sometimes all it takes is getting a certain taste into their mouth, make sure the food tastes good. And then, and you go, oh, you liked this. Do you want a little bit more of this? And honestly, it takes a lot of choreography. I'm not saying these are the only ways to do it. You might need a psychologist. You might need a nutritionist. But when you have a picky eater that doesn't have this disorder, it's, okay, look, you need to buck up. Sorry, it's, these are your choices. You're not going to be eating McDonald's 5 days a week. You're not going to be eating cake. You don't get dessert. The only thing you're getting is something healthy. These are your options. This is what you eat. And if they're hungry, they'll eat. But with this disorder, it's a little different. You might not be able to do that, hard knock school or, so don't do negative reinforcement. Don't beat them. Don't punish them, but do positive reinforcement. You want to go to the birthday party? Okay, I need to see you take a couple teaspoons of your soup. All right, you got to drink your vegetable soup. Once you do that, we'll go to the party. So, things like that. 1-877-Daliah. Don't go away. Hi guys, Dr. Daliah here. Addictions can sneak up on us and come in many forms, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, video games, porn, or something less obvious such as food, internet, or shopping. Addiction can seem innocent at first and then evolve into an insurmountable evil. In our book, Addiction Basics, Caitlin Kalikas and I dive into the common addictions and provide tips for identifying and preventing these before they sneak in and take over our lives. Addiction Basics can be found on Amazon or my website, drdaliah.com. Check it out.
At Hotshot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems and their solutions. For example,
Hotshot Secret Stiction Eliminator.
Stiction, that sticky friction, undermines the performance of diesel engines. Third-party ASTM testing verifies that Stiction Eliminator removes 2 times as much stiction than any alternative on the retail shelf. Stiction Eliminator is formulated to be left in the engine oil. It works as you drive.
Available at truck stops, Tractor Supply, O'Reilly's Auto Parts, and online at HotShotSecret.com. Hotshot Secret. Powered by science.
Back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Doc-Dali, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So I didn't like all the rumors of people saying, oh, Biden's gone. He's passed away. No, come on, people. He isolated for COVID, and we know he has been struggling physically and cognitively. That's, I think, been obvious. We haven't been given a diagnosis by his medical providers, but I think he is still alive and relatively well. And fortunately, his team made the decision to have him finally make a public appearance or to speak. And so he will address the nation later tonight. Obviously, people want to know if he is still fit to continue to lead. And I had predicted 4 years ago that he would not want to leave office with his tail between his legs and people accusing him of, pooping himself and all that, where he would want to leave on a high note. And so I don't think it's going to happen tonight, but I had 4 years ago thought that what he might do is not make it through the 4 years, not be able to re-campaign, but in order to leave with a bang, elevate Kamala Harris so he gets credit for giving us the first female president, as opposed to him going, all right, I'm going to finish my term and just go off into the shadows. I think he might want to leave with a bang. Although, not being able to finish your term isn't that exciting. But if he says, look, I can finish my term, I'm good, but now I want to give, America what I think they need, et cetera, whatever. I don't think Biden will do that. I think he's just going to address why he is stepping aside from the campaign and dropping his 2024 Democratic reelection bid. If he is going to be in the Oval Office, his Oval Office speeches are better than his off-the-cuff speeches. He doesn't have to have reporters asking him a bunch of questions. He's sitting. They could play with the lighting. He has a better look. He's been looking very pale recently. And then the teleprompters could be as big as he needs. So I think it's going to be an okay speech. I don't think he's going to have as many of his issues, but he says he will finish the job for the American people. This finish the job, I'm a little confused by. As a doctor, I don't see the hospital infrastructure better. I don't see Obamacare giving people practical health insurance. I still see high deductibles. I don't see the border secure. I don't see the economy on track. So I'm not exactly sure what this finish the job is. It's kind of depressing. Now, I think he could have done so much more with this presidency, and it's a shame. It's sad. And, I feel for him. I want to see our elected officials, do the best job to represent their party and America, represent Americans not in their party, and to unite people and to decrease the hate people have for either party. I'm very nervous about Kamala Harris. One, because of her experience. Two, because some of the things she's voiced her stand on. But also three, because people are going to associate her with women in politics, and I think women in politics could do a much better job. And I don't want Kamala Harris representing what happens if you choose a woman as your running mate. So Biden, what does he need to do next? Well, one, he needs to still show he's running the country. Things are in a little bit of disarray. Democrats are trying to still collect money. They've raised a lot of money for Kamala Harris. They've raised a lot. I mean, there was like $100 million in the days following her announcement. And by the way, that makes me sick on both sides. The money that we're spending, $100 million could, you know what that money could go to? It could go to the wall. It could go to new hospitals and medical centers. It could go to food. It could go to formula. It could go to, it's striking that, everybody's like, look at all the millions of dollars the Republicans and Democrats have raised. And it's, why do these ads have to be so gosh darn expensive? I understand it takes money to win, but I would rather donate. If somebody said, Daliah, you could donate $1 million. I don't have $1 million, but if I did, I would say, can I donate it to the homeless veterans? Can I donate it to, it's a lot of money. And I think this election is going to probably hit records, not, understanding that it's 2024 prices. I still think it's going to hit records. So Biden's job right now is to, one, get those hostages out of Gaza, two, secure the border, three, end his legacy by trying to unite the country and not making people despise one side or the other, and get his health taken care of. It's okay. And then these doctors, they need to salvage their reputations and fast. Why nobody is doing an MRI? Why nobody's doing cognitive testing or admitting that it was done? I mean, we see a man, who's flailing, and the doctors are like, oh, he is fit for duty. They could be complicit in a lot. Now, people always ask, would I want to be a White House physician? Absolutely not. Now, mind you, if I am called for duty, if I am asked to serve, I will serve. But by choice, no. Because I need to be honest and true to my field. If somebody says, oh, I don't want you writing that in the chart, I don't want you to say, don't address this, just examine me with my clothes on, examine me, I just don't even put the stethoscope on my heart, skip it. I can't say I did a full exam. I'll say I did a partial exam. I'll say you were dressed throughout it, but I'm not going to pretend that you had a skin cancer screen and that, you're clear of melanoma, or that I checked your prostate, or that you are of sound mind. If I didn't test it, I'm not going to comment on it. So if I had been President Biden's physician, my note would have basically said, well, his heart rate is 82, his blood pressure is this. And he was able to sit comfortably for the exam. That's it. I wouldn't have, I mean, unless I got to examine other parts, and then I would have commented on it. Dr. O'Connor had some detail on his heart and skin and other things, but where was the mental status exam? Where was the exam of the brain, considering his history of cerebral aneurysms and blood clots and atrial fibrillation and cognitive concerns? So president has departed Delaware, meaning looks like he is feeling well enough from the COVID to travel. I believe he was treated with the full course of Paxlovid. He had been isolating in his Rehoboth Beach home, which I'm okay with that, to isolate, but the country needs a commander-in-chief right now. I'm not sure what's going on with Taiwan and China. I'm not sure what's going on with Israel and the Middle East. From what I understand, Netanyahu is addressing Congress. We're being told that Netanyahu may get an opportunity to talk with Biden and Kamala Harris. I would think they would be more eager to meet with him because we got hostages still held by Hamas in Gaza, but it sounds like they may meet with Netanyahu. So it sounds like he's still working. But, if I were him, I would put my health first, and then I would figure out, the best way to leave a legacy is to do good for America. Right now, it looks like it's in shambles. And if you want to help Kamala Harris, don't leave her a mess to clean up, even if she was a part of that mess. 1-877-Daliah, don't go away.
Considered by most, optimized curcumin is one of the few bioavailable and highly absorbable curcumin products on the market. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch. Since most chronic diseases have inflammation, our optimized curcumin seems to be a perfect addition to any nutritional program. It makes sense to me that preventing or reducing inflammation is a key component to our overall health. The Mayo Clinic found that curcumin can decrease swelling and inflammation, has antioxidant properties, and research suggests that curcumin can prevent cancer, or at least slow the spread of cancer, and in many instances make chemotherapy more effective. It protects our healthy cells even from radiation. TotalWellness.com, where we help you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
Self-reliance. It's not a phrase we hear much in our culture these days. It might conjure up images of pioneers, the West, rifles, strapping men, and strong women. But what does it mean for us in today's world? The New American Magazine has just released its latest collector's edition, Self-Reliance, Foundation of Freedom. In it, the New American authors outline the necessity of self-reliance for a free people, tips for self-reliant living, and the importance of not giving up hope. This unique edition includes articles on the self-sufficiency of the founders, preparing for a worst-case scenario, firearms, financial self-reliance, the importance of community, and many other topics by expert writers. Now, for a limited time, the New American is offering a bundle of 3 collector's editions, Self-Reliance, The Great Reset, and Trump World, for just $19.95. Available at shopjbs.org. Visit shopjbs.org today.
Back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Daliah, 1-877-DOC-DALI. We really do appreciate you listening. Keep those questions coming. So, because I live in Southern Nevada, I get access to some of the most amazing trails, and I could hike in Southern Nevada, I could hike in California, I could hike in Arizona, I could hike in Utah, and I'm blessed. Just the hiking trails, and I love hiking. It's one of my most favorite things to do. Unfortunately, we have had, I think, another death. This is the 5th person to die in Utah due to the extreme heat and not having enough water. And for those of us that have ever hiked, when you plan a hike, You might plan on some food. You might plan on your sunglasses and your hat. And you might say, okay, well, we got to take water. Ooh, that's heavy. Oh, that's heavy. Well, the heavier our pack is, then the more water we're going to need. So let's lighten the pack. Oh, no, 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 no. Never skimp on the water. You have got to figure out ways to make sure you have plenty of fluids. Just to let you know what happened here, and it's very, very tragic. There was a 56-year-old hiking on a trail near Quail Creek State Park on Sunday near Hurricane City in Utah. It was about 106-degree heat. She fell into distress because of a lack of water. Hurricane City police responded to the call for help. She was unresponsive on a trail near Quail Creek State Park. Life-saving measures were performed, but they couldn't save her. This follows another hiker, Belly Ruth Ordonez, 30 years old, died July 13th hiking in Utah's Snow Canyon State Park. It was over 100-degree temperatures. Her parents were found nearby and were in critical condition with heat exhaustion. A day before she was found, the bodies of Wisconsin residents Albino Herrera Espinosa, 52, and his daughter Beatrice Herrera, 23, at the Canyonlands National Park in Utah. They ran out of water and were found dead. And so in one case, there was somebody where the dog was barking and saved the life of the owner. The person had dementia, had gone missing, went into the scorching heat. But for those of you who are avid hikers and going out there to enjoy the outdoors, which we want you to do, when you hear of an avid hiker or an experienced hiker dying of dehydration, they either got lost or they didn't anticipate their fluid needs. And the range is about a half a liter to a liter per hour, but it depends on the heat. It depends on the altitude. It depends on the medications you're on. It depends on the sky cover and the clouds and the time of day and how much of your elevation and climb you have. And so you need to plan for that. You also need to plan for if you get lost. So there may be some people calculating, going, okay, so I got this bottle, I got this bottle, I have this bottle, I'm good. You want to plan for what if you get stuck overnight? Now, people also always say, well, you know what? You could actually live 2 days without water and you could live a week without food. Not when you're hiking in the heat. Get that out of your mind. You could die same day. You need to be realistic about that. And so if you're trying to carry water and the water is heavy, you're going to be apprehensive about there's ways to carry water. I love these bladder vests and these bladder backpacks. And you should be able to quantitate how much you have. I do like the idea still of plastic water bottles as long as you dispose them properly, because you don't want to leave plastic in these beautiful, beautiful parks. But plastic is, again, lighter. And so until somebody gets rid of our plastic use with bottles, you could still use those. Keep in mind the heat is going to warm the water, and it can also leach chemicals. So I like the bladders more. But you can never have too much water. Now, if another thing that we also recommend is if you are hiking and you are going to be near bodies of water, one, ensure that the water levels are going to be adequate, because sometimes you're like, oh, there's a river here on the map. I see the blue. And then when you get there, it's all dried up. But having potable water filtration things, so in case of an emergency, it's huge. I think prehydrating can help. You can't drink your whole hike before you go on that hike, but if you're dehydrated before you even start. Now, a lot of people might not do that because they don't want to stop and pee. Just hydrate. I don't care. Just tell everybody. I have no problem peeing in front of my friends at this point. I'm like, I gotta go. But make sure you hydrate. Also, don't forget to eat. You might be misinterpreting also some of your hunger for thirst, and you lose electrolytes. So water might not be enough. You might need some salts. You might need hydrating solution. So not only fill with water, but make sure you have electrolyte solution, or you have non-salty snacks. that can also help you in terms of, of your hike. If you can if you do a loop where you could still access your car, maybe you're going 2 miles in, but if you can somehow do a loop where you could still access cars and people, that might be also safer. Because then at least you could have a cooler in the car that has water and you have a place to go to. You got to stay cool. You have to have a good hat, good sunglasses, sunblock, and you need to cover your skin to try to retain, some of the moisture that your skin might give off when it's dry. You also have to understand that there's going to be certain altitudes, and based on your fatigue, based on that altitude, you might go through your fluids more so. I see a lot of issues where people are only hiking with one other person or just 2 other people. Make sure you go with a group. This way, if all of you are collecting water, bringing water and bringing fluids and stuff, there'll be plenty of options. Also, make sure you have other means to alert first responders, just in case your cell phone doesn't work. And if you aren't experienced, don't pretend to be. These hikes, I love how these parks will say, look, now this is for your experienced hikers. This is going to be moderate. This is going to be strenuous. This is going to be simple. I've rarely seen any of them wrong. When it's simple, it's pretty simple. But when it's moderate or when it's strenuous, they're not lying. And then you could account for that. You can plan for that. To carry water, I really want you to look at some of these. Not only can you do your backpack, but there's also belts. There's also vests. I know people go, but I'm going to get hot and it's going to be, I'd rather you have the fluids. Another thing that I think is also smart is set a timer to hydrate. A big mistake we do this, unfortunately, with pain, we do this when we get sick, is we wait till we're at a dearth and then we try to flood ourselves with the medication or whatever to fix the situation. Well, what if you're taking sips every 10 or 20 minutes? Maybe then you're not going to be so dehydrated where you have to down a whole gallon of water. How does your body do well with food and with fluids? It's not when they get big boluses of it. It's when they can manage it as they need. So the idea of, well, I'm going to wait till I'm thirsty. Sometimes when you're hypothermic or hypothermic, you might not be thinking that clearly. If you have a thyroid condition, if you're on certain medication like blood pressure medication, you might dehydrate more. So set a timer where every 10, 20 minutes, you take a sip or two. Or you drink a little bit, or you drink some ounces. So be safe out there, understand your route, and God bless. 1-877-Daliah.
Did you know that healthy arteries make a gas? Yes, actually 3 known gases. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch, and nitric oxide is a gas that's readily made all day long to keep our arteries open by relaxing the blood vessel walls. By doing this, our circulation is increased, bringing blood, oxygen, and nutrients to every part of your body. Both age and poor diet can lead to a loss of this precious gas, and in turn, blood pressure can go up, energy can go down, and you can get tingling in your hands and feet. Well, our product, Ultimate Nitric Oxide, can easily help fix this lack of nitric oxide. Go to TotalWellness.com. That's TotalWellness.com, where we are helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.